Like the Avengers, Scott Drew has assembled a team, one that's ready to compete right now, and he ain't even done yet.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas, Jackson Posey of the Baylor Lariat, and the guy who has locked down everything transfer portal for Baylor basketball. Like, it literally ranks Scott Drew number one in Baylor basketball film watching, Jackson Posey number two. We're going to talk to him about this new team and why they might be ready to compete a little bit sooner than you think. We'll go through the backcourt and the drama that could be coming out of the point guard position, the newly minted, really athletic front court, and what it means for the team they have right now and why the Bears might not be done. So this is going to be a heavy transfer portal, new Baylor basketball team Friday for you. So Jackson, let's start here. You lose. Your biggest loss in the transfer portal was your point guard, Rob Wright. Okay. Biggest in terms of he was the best player that you were bringing back. And also he goes to a conference rival and there's all kinds of drama that comes with that. So you lose Rob Wright, your point guard, the guy who you're giving the keys to. In the meantime, you might have gotten two for the price of one. We talked about Obi Agbim the last time you were here. He said on the Easter message, point guard, Obi Agbim, point guard, Baylor Bears. You see the J.J. White tape. It screams a lot of point guard there. He just led Nebraska, Omaha, of all teams, to the NCAA tournament. So who do you see kind of taking that position and taking the reins of this offense?
Yeah, right now I don't know that there's a clear option as this is our number one point guard. We can lock him in, write that in Sharpie. Right now the leader in the clubhouse is going to be J.J. White. Led the Summit League in assists this year with about 4 a game. My concern with J.J. White is if you line him up next to a guy like Obi Agbim, there's going to be a lot of sort of defensive deficiencies out there on the perimeter. Elite shooter, solid passer. I wouldn't call him like a Ray J. Dennis type of guy, right? But very capably runs pick and rolls. But if you have those two guys out on the perimeter, you're going to need a lot more help on the back end. Juslin Bodo-Bodo, Michael Rataj, Tunde Yusufu, that might be enough. But I don't know how many minutes you can get away with that backcourt together during Big 12 play, which makes me think you might be trying to cobble together some type of point guard by committee approach with an Obi Agbim, maybe a Cameron Carr, maybe just throwing a bunch of other guys in there. I think Caden Powell, who we might talk about later, might have some like sneaky high post playmaking ability that could be unlocked. So J.J. White is the only like true point guard on the roster right now, but I don't know that you're going to look at him and be like, yeah, this guy's starting and playing 30 minutes a game at this point.
And in some ways, it's a good problem to have, right? You just mentioned a ton of talent in that backcourt, especially the two guys we don't talk about much because it's been so portal heavy. But there is still Cameron Carr here. There is still Tunde coming in. Like that kind of rounds out your starting five when you look at what they've done in the front court, which we'll get into in the next segment. But back to J.J. White a little bit. I saw his tape, and outside of the three-pointers, which is a huge part of his game, right? I mean, it's probably his biggest weapon. I see a lot of Rob Wright in the way he plays. Am I being crazy in that? What are you seeing in kind of those mirror images?
I would not go that far. I think
So you can say I'm crazy. You can say it.
Yeah, you're a little crazy. They both are certainly like smaller, quick guards, but J.J. White in the way that he creates is a lot more focused on getting out to the perimeter, whereas Rob Wright was, okay, this is an A1, tier 1 type of inside finisher, even at his size. And so I think the strongest part of Rob Wright's game was, and you can see this if you go check out my film breakdown on some other guys that we watched this week, Dan Skillings, where Rob Wright's just zipping around, going in little circles inside the perimeter, getting to the paint. Nobody can really stop this guy. J.J. White, also very quick, but his game is not so predicated on those inside finishes. And so if I'm Scott Drew and I am running the offense, I'm trying to get J.J. White the ball. I'm primarily running off-ball pin down screens, trying to get him open on the perimeter for catch and shoot opportunities. Whereas with Rob Wright, it was more of how can we get this guy moving towards the basket with the ball. And so definitely has a little bit of the same build and quickness and shiftiness to him, but isn't going to attack the rim at the same clip or with the same capability as Rob Wright will, even just stylistically.
Now, this is where it gets interesting because what you just described in getting JJ White the ball is actually a lot of what we've seen from Baylor the last couple of years. Last year, not really withstanding because they've had elite guards who could shoot, not even just shooting guards, but guards who could shoot. Outside of Ray J. Dennis, they've had a bunch of guys who can shoot the rock. And it's funny because that sounds like Baylor right there. But yet, the guy who installed that offense, John Jacobs, is not here. All the players who were successful in that Baylor offense, obviously, are not here anymore. So with these moves in the backcourt, in the portal, and obviously getting Cam Carr earlier in the season, do you see just from the personnel that it could be Baylor shifting back towards that kind of high ball screen, 3-point shooting kind of style?
Yeah, this is going to be high pick and rolls over and over and over and over and over again. Juslin Bodo-Bodo is going to be one of the best pick and roll lob finishers in the Big 12. I mean, that's the guy you're looking for, right? He is not Yves Missi, different types of players, right? But he's got that type of rim gravity where it changes the geometry of the court. You can't help defense in the same way as you would otherwise because he's just constantly this looming presence, a 7-foot guy who's got this crazy wingspan. Caden Powell also, as your other big man, has a little bit of interesting shiftiness to him in the way that he is able to sort of manipulate the defense after catching short roll passes and can kind of put the ball on the deck a little bit, kind of has some fancy footwork in there. And so even if for some reason both of them were in the game, I think you're leaning into that pick and roll offense and you're saying, yeah, we are going to create havoc on the inside. You've got somebody like an Obi Agbim who can shoot in the mid-range. Michael Rataj can shoot in the mid-range. I'd like to see some pick and roll stuff from them too. Maybe Rataj as the ball handler, Agbim as the screener a couple times if he's able to set those type of screens on the bigger players. This is going to be a pick and roll heavy offense. It's not going to be the same as Baylor ran a couple years ago when you had Keontae George, LJ Cryer, Adam Flagler, simply because right now, I mean, crazy guard lineup, right? Yeah. 3 guys averaging 15 a game, but you really only have 2 of those shooters right now. And so you throw in a Dan Skillings or an Isaac Wilson. Those aren't necessarily the guys who are going to step in there. Isaac Williams, pardon. Yeah. Those aren't shooters right now at this point. You could throw in a Cameron Carr, to be determined if he's going to be able to shoot at a high level like that. But you have your 2 guys. You have Michael Rataj, who's able to shoot on the outside. And I think that creates a really strong foundation for a team that is going to be looking to create offense from the ground up.
And already that shooting, even though it's just 2 knockdown guys, already that shooting on paper is better than it was here in the 2024-2025 season. So we're looking forward to some more of that at the Foster Pavilion. We got a lot to go through with the big men. I mean, totally changing potentially how Baylor plays their game in a way that Baylor fans are going to love. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. You know the one. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5, that is SH, the numeral 5, for 5% off your order. That's supplyhouse.com. And we are supplied with the very best Baylor transfer portal expert in the business. That's Jackson Posey of the Baylor Lariat. He has watched so much film. He doesn't watch films, but he loves watching film. That's the new age college student, people. Okay, look, I don't make the rules. Okay, they don't watch TCM. They just watch the transfer portal YouTube page, which is fantastic, by the way, for getting great stats. Jackson Posey comes in here. We've talked about the guards in the first segment, but really the front court has gotten a huge upgrade in a couple of different ways. That's obviously where Baylor was really thin this past year. You end up playing Jalen Celestine, who really is just a shooter at power forward for most of the season, and he's out of position. And you're down to one center really by the end of it, with Marino Dubravcic coming in a pinch just to give you a couple of minutes. But you have really reloaded on that side, especially at forward. And one guy we didn't really talk about last time, even though you had done a lot of research on him, Jackson, was Michael Rataj. He comes in. He might have been the first one to sign. I think Obi Agbim came in right after him. He's not like your prototypical wing 3-point shooter, but there's some fun things he can do offensively that he averaged over 17 a game at Oregon State last year. What kind of jumps off the page for you about Michael Rataj?
Yeah, to me, Michael Rataj comes in as probably the leader in the clubhouse for me to be, oh, this is the best guy on the team. I think you're going to get to the end of the year and people are going to say, oh, Michael Rataj is the one. He's not going to probably be the one taking the big shots at the end of the game. That's going to be Obi Agbim. But I look at Rataj and I say, hey, this is a pure scorer. This is a guy who's taken big, consistent steps forward every season. Question, can he shoot the 3 ball? We'll see, right? If he can continue shooting at an average level, he shot 35% on about 3 attempts a game this season. If he can hold that steady, he has really high-level scoring instincts and shooting ability in the mid-range. He can get inside. He has the length and athleticism to play defense. I mean, this is a guy who's 6'9", 220. He's a couple inches taller than Norchad Omier, bigger wingspan. Little. He's not built like Norchad Omier, right? But he is the type of scoring forward that I don't know that Baylor has had in a long time. Cam, you're a lot older than me.
Yeah, thank you.
When's the last time that Baylor had a pull-up shooter as a forward?
It's been a minute. I wouldn't put Jalen Bridges into that category. Obviously, neither would you. You're young enough to remember him, old enough to remember him. It's been a while, man. I mean, I might have to think a little bit. Like they didn't have the forward shoot all that much. Like this was a very old school basketball offense until Jacobs in 2019. So someone is going to bury me in the comments for not coming up with one quicker. But I can't think of one, Jackson. I really can't.
Yeah,
a lot of back to the basket forwards.
Yeah, he is a true, I'm going to get inside and pull up in your face and drain this mid-range jump shot. And I know that's a little more old school. The analytics might not love it, but the analytics love made jump shots in the end.
Taurean Prince, I guess he could do a little bit of he could score from everywhere really by the end. I'll go with that. I'll go with Taurean Prince if that's okay with you.
I don't know that Michael Rataj is an NBA caliber defender at this point. The way
a 10-year NBA vet, yeah.
But I mean, he truly is built in such a way that if he fully buys in on the defensive end, he could be part of a monster defensive front court alongside Juslin Bodo-Bodo, who's obviously fantastic, one of the best defensive big men in the nation. Tunde Yusufu, who
pause because you're leading me in my next question here. Juslin Bodo-Bodo. I saw the tape and was impressed, right? Like right away. He's obviously got accolades, Big South Player of the Year 2 years, or Defensive Player of the Year 2 years in a row. But in your breakdown, you really kind of highlight just how much of a menace this guy is defensively. Like it feels like he's going to bring you Yves Missi level shot disruption.
Maybe this is a really hot take. I think Missi on a technical level was still a little bit raw when he was at Baylor.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Bodo-Bodo comes in as a better defender than Missi was. And
love it.
You saw that at High Point, right? He led the nation in led the nation in offensive rebounding percentage, but led the conference in block percentage both seasons at High Point. As a guy who comes in theoretically is kind of raw, right? I mean, this is a 3-star prospect who doesn't have, all these great offers coming in, but he immediately comes in, makes a massive defensive impact with a new coach who now is at Creighton as the head coach in waiting after taking High Point to the NCAA tournament. But you even saw it at times against Purdue, right? Where you're going up against Trey Kaufman-Renn, one of the better big men in the nation, and nobody can stop Trey Kaufman-Renn. And he's also the sort of type of big man that Bodo-Bodo struggles with, which is a little bit of a smaller guy who's more mobile. But when you have guys who get in the paint you can't score on this guy. Fantastic wingspan. He's dense, right? He's strong. You're not going to be able to back him down in the way that you've seen with some other taller big guys, right? If you're 7 foot in college, it's pretty easy to, I'm just kind of rail thin and you can kind of get under me a little bit. Bodo-Bodo does not struggle with that. And you can put him up against any post big man in the nation, and he's going to be able to hold his ground. Also a fantastic rebounder, particularly on the offensive end. That's the guy who I think transforms your defense. And you're not going to talk about him as much. Not you personally. People aren't going to talk about him as much because he doesn't shoot jump shots. Something like 70% of his shots are probably just dunks, right? Like this is a true rebound, roll to the rim, play defense guy. But he is fantastic. And I don't know that there's a single player who's going to make more of an impact on the team. He's not the best player on the team.
Right.
But he might make a bigger impact than anybody else on this roster this season.
Dang. I was really clamoring for Ugonna Onyenso last year in the portal, and even a little bit this year, even after he had a disappointing season at Kansas State, for what he could be. But from what you just described, Juslin Bodo-Bodo is already what I was hoping Ugonna Onyenso would be. And you talk about the frame there, that is what's going to help him make that transition to the Big 12 and hopefully make it pretty easily. But looking at some of the other guys you broke down, Dan Skillings, who I was not high on when they were going after him, and certainly when they made the commitment, not bad, but just not as high on him as I am on some of the other guys. But here's a guy who started in the Big 12, like has started plenty of games in the Big 12, loses his spot in the middle of the year last year with Cincinnati. And from what we heard, didn't really sulk about it and became a somewhat effective player off the bench. You called him an AAU style hooper. Jackson, for me and the other old heads that listen to this podcast, tell me why that's actually a good thing.
Let me throw out one more thing on Bodo-Bodo, and then we'll get to Skilling.
Yes, please.
Just to make sure we're framing this conversation correctly for people. Juslin Bodo-Bodo is not Bill Russell. He really struggles in high pick and roll ball screens, and so that's going to be the one question mark, right? Is if he consistently gets put out there on the perimeter, especially with say a guard defender like a JJ White or an Obi Agbim, who hasn't. I mean, JJ White a little bit has proven to be able to get over screens, but if you can't consistently get over screens with him and be able to play drop defense, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. If you can avoid the high ball screens, he's going to be fantastic. Let's talk about Skillings. AAU style hooper in the sense that he can play at whatever pace that he wants to. And that happens in transition in weird ways. Maybe this is just my age showing, right? Playing AAU, whatever. But when you are on the court, there's not really a how should I word this? There's not like a immediacy that, everything has to happen right now. You just kind of slow things down. You're hanging out. This is calm. We're just playing basketball, and you see this in a couple of these fast break plays where he's out there in transition. He just kind of slows it down a little bit, lets the defense catch up, not in a way to actually impact the shot, but there's not that sense of urgency there, which at times is frustrating, right? And you watch this guy play on defense. Sometimes he gets a little bit caught in no man's land. On offense, sometimes it feels like he's floating a little bit, particularly on the boards. But when he's locked in, he has that sort of, I can just do everything that you also get from the AAU. So that's more of the comparison, right? Is there's not really the sense of urgency, but there is a sort of do-it-all athleticism that allows you to sky in for a rebound when you decide to, right? Or really just make some crazy off-ball cuts where nobody can catch up to you because you have that combination of speed and change of direction that's really rare, especially for an off-ball wing, right? Generally, if I'm a super high-level athlete, maybe I'm an on-ball guy. Dan Skillings isn't like a dribbler. He's not a primary initiator, but he can be really dangerous in those off-ball sets. And I mentioned earlier, like JJ White running off screens off-ball. I wonder if you could have some interesting combinations where on one side of the court, or even maybe running off the same double screens, you have JJ White and Dan Skillings crossing paths where Skillings is cutting to the rim, JJ White's coming open on the backside, and whoever's orchestrating the offense up top, maybe that's Obi Agbim, has two different guys who the defense is really having to sell out to stop. I think you could get some fascinating offensive sets between Skillings and JJ White, or an Obi Agbim if you're running him off ball. And so Skillings is not the player archetype that I'm typically a fan of, but he definitely has talent. And if he can make some small, very, very doable adjustments, very doable improvements on things like rebounding mentality, right? Like he needs to start boxing out. He frequently kind of hangs back on the perimeter and, oh, maybe I'll cherry pick for a rebound or I'll just wait a little bit. He needs to fix some of his footwork inside. You saw some clips against Robert Wright where he would cross his feet a little bit. Once you cross your feet, you're cooked against a guard that quick, right? He's a little better against the strong guys than against the quick guys, but can kind of guard either one. His ceiling is as a really impactful defensive wing who has the athleticism to make plays inside cutting on offense. That's going to prevent defenses from sagging all the way off of him because he's not a shooter. He does not have a three-point shot right now. He would need a very significant overhaul in his mechanics, and he's not a free throw shooter either, right? And so I'm not going in with any misconceptions that this guy is going to be a sniper from outside. But if he's able to consistently cut to the rim, you're going to have to be honest enough that guys can't totally sag off of him. And so high potential. I am a little bit concerned about the mindset at times on defense. Not that he doesn't care, but he just needs to be a little bit more locked in consistently.
That is most of your new roster. We didn't even get to all of it yet. But what we really want to ask now is whether this roster is ready to win some basketball games. Let's ask that question next on Locked On Baylor. Okay, Jackson Posey, Baylor Lariat, has seen all the film on all these guys. He has put the roster together himself through the film. Okay, Scott's doing the rest of the work. But let's ask you this, Jackson. The way it's constructed right now, and again, this is on May 2nd that we're going over this, and there's still plenty of moves that could potentially be made. But the roster as it stands right now, with all the positives we've gone over in this show, is this team ready to win some games in the Big 12?
As currently constructed, I think this Baylor team can compete. Maybe will not be the favorite in the Big 12, but this team can compete to make a real run in the Big 12 tournament. Here's why I say that. I'm concerned about the guard defense, right? As it stands now, let's say you're starting Obi Agbim and JJ White. That's not your strongest defensive lineup, right? You're going to score a ton of points, but who are you going to stop, particularly on those high ball screens? And I know that sounds simple of like, oh, you're setting a screen like a little over the top of the key. Like anybody can do that. Yeah. And I think that's a bit of the problem right now is you have two guards who haven't consistently shown that they can fight over those ball screens. And you have a big man in Juslin Bodo-Bodo who is not the most mobile, right? You saw some of those highlights against Trey Kaufman-Renn in Purdue, where Trey Kaufman-Renn's about at the free throw line and Bodo-Bodo's standing inside of the circle, just kind of waiting for him to get closer. TKR's like, what are we doing here? He just pulls up for a little mid-range jump shot. But you don't have that high level mobility at the center position to make up for some defensive deficiencies at the guard position. And so that's where I wonder, okay, are you at times going to maybe stretch to a sort of interesting zone defense, like a 1-2-2 or something, where or a 1-3-1, right? Maybe you have Rataj and Tunde out there where they can make a little more interesting off-ball cheats where Bodo-Bodo's on the back line, a little bit more protected. Maybe you bring in Caden Powell at times. I think that's one of my biggest like galaxy brain moments. I think that Scott Drew is going to put in Caden Powell and his one career 3-point shot with Juslin Bodo-Bodo and his one career 3-point shot against some poor mid-major team.
Let's go.
And they're going to succeed because Juslin Bodo-Bodo and Caden Powell have such completely contrasting offensive styles that you can have one guy with the vertical gravity, one guy with the horizontal gravity. They could play off of each other a little bit. I don't know that you want Caden Powell being the ball handler and pick and rolls, but you can have some off-ball screen and roll actions between them and make something happen. You have really high level scoring consistently across the roster. That's your Obi Agbim, right? That's your Michael Rataj. You have guys who are going to be real difference makers. And I think need to watch some more film on him, but I think we're underrating Yusufu at this point. He is a guy who's a top 15 prospect in the nation.
Yeah.
Really, really high level athlete. Bit of a positional tweener for the NBA. You don't care. This is college basketball.
Yeah.
You can be whatever height
anywhere.
You want to.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who I think if he can unlock a little bit more offensively, right? Because to me, he's a little bit of a mystery on that side right now. If he can unlock a consistent 3-point shot, or if he can consistently create off the dribble, that's going to unlock a whole lot for you offensively. And high expectations for this team on offense already. He can unlock a little more. And if you have him, Rataj, Juslin Bodo-Bodo firing on all cylinders, especially if you have a lineup with, say, Dan Skillings in there, I think you can make some really impactful defensive possessions. And you don't have a lot of two-way guys, right? There's not a lot of players on the roster right now who you can say, I trust you offensively and defensively against Big 12 competition. But given where this team started this offseason, I'm really impressed with the way that this roster build has come together. And this is a team that's going to win a good amount of games in the Big 12.
Love that. Real quick, Jackson, before we get you out of here, though, is this team done?
I would love to get another true point guard in there. JJ White coming off the bench, I would feel a lot more comfortable with, just because I mean he took a massive step forward season over season on his 3-point shooting. 2 years or a year ago, I guess, he shot 27% from beyond the arc. Year before that, he was about average, but far below average a year ago. Then this past season, he shot 44%. There's a little, he's a different player than Jeremy Roach, but there's a little bit of that, okay, massive bump the season before he comes to Baylor. There's probably some amount of regression to the mean there. Maybe not. Maybe he's totally fixed the shot. Maybe it's going to be consistent. But I would like to bring in at least one more guy that you can trust and say, okay, this guy can run the offense if JJ White's having an off night or if there's an injury or something. Because right now there's not really a true backup point guard on the roster. If you can get that handled, you get a two-way point guard who can run pick and rolls. Doesn't have to be a world beater, but just can be a solid pick and roll general to get other guys the ball. I think you're pretty good at this point. You have a couple forwards, probably need one more because you have about 3 right now. But pick and roll ball handler and then like a break glass in case of emergency forward. I think that's probably enough.
Love it. Love it. Jackson, one last thing, because I said the last thing was the last thing, but this is the last thing. Where can people find your work? Plug it away.
Follow me on Twitter at by Jackson Posey. Follow me on Goodreads. And don't follow me on Life 360.
Don't do that. Don't anybody do that. I swear I'll come and find you. Anyway, that's Jackson Posey. I mean, you heard it. The guy's got us absolutely covered. We didn't even get to everything today. So that means we'll have to, get Jackson in the back of a van and get him on another episode in a couple of weeks or so. So Jackson, appreciate your time. As always, appreciate everyone tuning in and listening today and making this your first listen today and every day. Get down in the comment section below. Let me know what you're excited about for this team, what you think this team still needs to add in order for it to be a true contender in the Big 12. Let us know in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way towards 4,000 subscribers. We need your guys' help in getting there. Thank you once again for making it your first listen today and every day. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday on Locked On Baylor.